조금은 돼.
단다야 단다족이
아서 아니 가서 조야트 로릭다 셈차라 강원조 로릭 코르트 셰기요레 아테 칼리카 본로레 tanke anchimore.
So it's a very yeah, vast topic about the mind and the very subtleties of the mind, but it's very important at the same time.
Nachu jani chi na lorik ta chang ke chimbore pe na inji ki jang le abcd jang gore pe jang le kaka kanga jang gore nachu jang la lorik jang ta su ten ro chi cha de ore.
It's just when we the same as when we want to learn a language like English, for example, we have to start with the ABC first, right? Or when we learn Tibetan, we start with KKK first. So likewise, if you want to study Buddhist philosophy, Lorig, the mind and awareness, the topic that we're studying, is sort of the basis.
Karre zena nga so nachu zia de su the same ge che are ma to shlo ko che che o mar sem ge che yim sondi sem gun ro tong de yak po shi gore lorig zia sem le sam lo tang tang da ma da sam man den yore zeni ya chen bo shi ya den ji re.
So what this topic of Lorig or mind and awareness is sort of about, obviously about the mind and in different ways of thinking.
Sonta nga so te ngo nyok pon ro yore ta tani kyo so dem go ni ma ching ro sa ti yang yo lo ta tani pare shi lorig tung go sia chi ro lorig te ya pon go na song chu de so na le la ma de so ma she on di song chu ko de ala a chang pen do che mo yung.
So what we have been looking at is what Geshe is teaching on is the book Science and Philosophy in the Indian Buddhist Classics. And it's quite complicated, or it can be a little bit complicated, but if you have the book and you read it thoroughly, it will be very beneficial for your understanding also of when you attend teachings, you will be able to better understand what the lamas are talking about.
Last tani ka so treshi da mantra shi pa ni te ngo cho che ni tani treshi ze de at chumta nambi chumta chama ge jaktan jagrin jag mare ze ti ten jag mare ze ti korter le ore.
So what we have talked about in the past class was, among others, about mistaken and non-mistaken consciousnesses. And there are some differences in how this is being understood, or these consciousnesses are being understood in the different tenet systems.
Tani kasan shwa na jire ki chani nambi jong ki kitan rawo chi chena topa chaman treshi himba ta chi pa jare ta wanshi to chol nga cho ngosam da nala mangi to chol treshi mare zini nambi chum tha ma che sa de shak yore.
Most tenet systems, they would assert that kasa wangshi
topa chaman treshi himba chi pa re ina wanshi ta ngosam da yugo lor dang na ngosam da nala mangi to chol treshi mare la de.
So most tenet systems accept that sense consciousnesses are all mistaken, but the sense consciousnesses, there are many many types that are not mistaken.
Namjo kyopi Roma bazeata tangiwa tatso atso wanshi tatso yan trashire zeni shedere
wanshi tan umapa nidwa kaset umatagipa dan
umatangiwa dan namjo kyopi Roma patan semzamba kosum
wanshi tulshi mare
wanshi tulshi lade
wanshi tulshi re. Okay, so then we have the higher tenet schools, the mind only school, the Yogacara Madhyamika school, one of the Madhyamika schools, and the Prasangika Madhyamika school. They say that the sense consciousnesses, Wangshe, that sense consciousnesses are all mistaken.
Trishi yatanda tande, Chumtanika, Katani Ketchambori, Konika, Tombanika Tawal, the Ore, Semsambi Court, the Kansanchi Shuyat, or Tarjawa Karla, or is it not so? Nimushigan, dul tavi sena ngindi demba chapana de gres ina ya toya te ko sherk pamba koronda korota tongore mato jenchin thwa yo mari ina na ya demba chapana de go so ni mushi kol nawalan chare la war
yes, so nangyul to
nawalan chro
ne jukyul to
yo mari.
So then for example, from the Prasangika Madhyamika point of view, looking at this glass in front of me what it appears to be is truly exist, and so the appearing object is mistaken, but the mind is not mistaken with regard to the object of engagement. So it correctly ascertains the glass, but as it appears truly existent from the prasangika madhyamika point of view, it is mistaken.
No, so certainly washing as a mushita washita solaya number. Trishi Jardini Takashi Yopat Hako Undu Koso Gilla Mantri Shipat Karaziti Papa Soya Tomba Nimosam got taught and Jigo Tombole on the any Mantri Shipajato Reze or Rejan so Gilla Mantri Shipas Jato Marilla.
So according to these higher schools, they say, as mentioned before, the sense consciousnesses are all mistaken what ordinary beings are concerned. But then they also say that, for, highly realized beings who have direct insight into reality, then they consum because
Tombo Tanton, Telly, the top issues and Namkins and the Tama Mantri Shibarilla.
Yeah, so that they have direct realization of emptiness or into reality. These perceptions are not mistaken, they're correct.
Dornata so you kishipa some and church de or that in Churio, so Yam with so Tapachi Cheta. Turning on in church de Manatang in Don't Tomat and church de or is in Angato Narusolshi Katishina Rantra made a mantra Yacha Manchin in Tongoringazo. Naso Tandel Town, the Nanchersoman, Nancherson Chermazos, and Yacha Jancher Mesam Grima, Tinchersam Kikuni Mari. So that take your so chimat, same.
So you can investigate that for yourself, whether, we ourselves believe whether we are mistaken or not. Usually we don't think we are mistaken yet, right, when we see this glass or so, but according, again, as mentioned before, according to the higher schools, because the things like the glass or so, it appears as truly existent, it's a mistaken perception.
Thank you, Tawal. Not so Hamukoya, the theatre and chalkboard, Hina, that she jumped down, do the Pata Chetama Manche, that's going in the David in a mantra laurita.
Tawisimatu,
mantra by Jean Killing or a tender watching at Sojaji in a captain John and Sari.
So, that's sort of like one of the main differences that in the lower schools, they would not say that we are mistaken when seeing that glass.
So that Tanidochi Retani, Mantra Nita Tanidochi Jat, Yatonga Mantra there to Ketchimbora, Matso Nachu Monishena, Matso Kanga Yonki Sama, and also Nunchishuni Yunguyoreze de war. Dungar Sama Nunchili Chunguyores in it, Tawayating and the Trishi Paliatu Yungur. Trishi Latini as of Kangi Mombo, Samatini Yungorilla.
Yeah, so what this kind of like relates to is, the fact that all our difficulties and sufferings, they all come about due to, mistaken perceptions.
Dungar Yonsa dances theatre, Dungar Yonkaras, the dancer coro Nunchi Changishipa, and Trishi and Sonsani. Titan is on the Nunchi short sighted in Yotasama Mali, raising.
And the very root of all the misperceptions is really the self-grasping attitude, because of which then all the problems and suffering arise. Danza
Nunchi Karche, or as it is Penangandachina, Maron the Savachim, Shuchi, Jamba the Solapa, Nipecho Tamish, the Koso, Dedul and Gain Tuni Makarindra, Mandachini Koso Dupoto, so the Savachim Shuchi and Doche, Tenichi Pashotal Tuni Matan. Then non to carries it titani, Pasha got set the cheongoriti, such a tinichi on the tape as a Patuchini Kangitama Tele Yongoreze or Yari Java Chibo Mari, Katayari, Chikuma Javari, Mandrago, Chikichila Soso Cheta, Soso the Savachambushu, Chichini, Tenota Sama Loyongoreze or.
Yeah, so it is this very self grasping attitude which brings us all the trouble, right? It's considering ourselves as so precious and important, and we don't regard others, the same way. So we disregard others, or and that creates all the whatever negative actions also, negative ways of thinking, not looking down on others, not considering others important as we cherish ourselves, and then acting that out in all sorts of negative ways.
Tsama Chamse Kangjan in Rona Kangi, Yacha Mombochi Machandro, or the Tsama Danzel Wancha, Chamse Wancha Machin, nga so pa chamse chi pa shon ni tsu chamse chi chama gi ru ru gi ni chamse chi na nin zang wang de zia chi yong yo sa ro ta ta che ro che go ma chama ga dang zhen de sa wa chi mo chi so so de sa wa chi mo chi jam ba la ang chwa yang yang chi ni ro song za te chen zo na ka ngi chama le go re.
If it was the case, that if that living beings were harmonious and loving, had loving affection towards each other, then we were out of trouble, as it were. But as that is not the case, we have that strong self-cherishing attitude, then we face all the problems.
Te mo bo chi nga ro sa wa chi mo chi dang zhen lo wang cha ma chen ni chi ngi cham se chi na pa sho ko cham se chi ngi kyong rang ru du tin ji sam ni te chama ga dang zhen lo wang cha che re ma to de ze sem ba lo lo chi cham se ngo le ja ni kali gen kyong bo chi na ni ma chi le ta chi li la wo chi tum de chen bo to ji rim bo so na rang jeng so so ga sem lo lo cha ni sem ba ki po cha ya tin ji yo sa ri sem ba ki po cha na de ki te re ma to te li lo se ga de ki ze ya chi chi kan yo ma ren zam bu le.
Oftentimes we might think that, if I'm kind to others, or, if I have a loving, affectionate attitude to others, I lose out in some ways.
Tang ne pa na po ma che na ko nga tsa na po che ngi kyong rang ro ri za ni cham se ma che ni pa na po che ya tin che ra atani ma che ni ta pa cham se che di par shi so so sem gil rang jing lo chan sem ba lo chan de ke re ta ni jam ba kar che na shran no to mare.
Yeah, but yeah, if we have or try to work on having this loving, affectionate attitude towards others, that in the long run, that would really help us, developing more peace, mental peace, as it were, and happiness.
Tani ta nga so lorik nani gani ma lorik dun ziyate rav se shetsare lorik sim ziyate rav chi shetsare lorik ni ziyate le desen chig yopi dani desen jete shab se shetsare.
So what we have covered in the past classes was this sevenfold division of the mind, which we have covered, and then the threefold division of the mind, which is also covered now. And then we looked into this twofold division of the mind, which again has 6 subdivisions, and we've finished with the first 4 out of 6.
Ni kyoso tani ma da jaja chi ne lo ta nga so rab chi ma to shu yo ma ri mong jib cha lo nan di na ha cha ya pondu.
We all, look at it in, like roughly. It's far more detailed, it's explained in the book.
Tani ta kara la yo rezena ta lor ni na ni de sa ni la de ore sen ji ko lo ta dum ji ko lo se ta sem dans sem jong ze ta ni la de ore.
So what is left now to cover today is about the last 2 out of these 6 subdivisions of the twofold division of the mind. One is about eliminative engagers and collective engagers, and the other one is about mind and mental factors.
Ani senji ko lo tan ji ko lo ze de ya ta kon sa chon di na lo sa she mandu te kare na gem se zu de senji ko lo ta to ba ni chi pare ji ko lo ta to me ki shi pa ni ton chi re tin din ro chi ko man ro mu si gin de ma jamba na jin je shi ya mandu.
His Holiness apparently hasn't explained extensively about eliminative engagers or collective engagers in his text, but what he says, the Rinpoche talk me. So yeah, he said, the Seljuk talk about it. Okay. So yeah, his Holiness doesn't specifically explain very much about these 2 types, but it is the case that basically eliminative engagers are synonymous with conceptual consciousnesses, and collective engagers are synonymous with non-conceptual consciousnesses.
Senjik ze dia de kan chi la ore ze na ka sang so to bal nji shi gya na ji chi pare senjik ze ti na so sel ze ti pas se atre ndri ki senjik lo ze na to pa ze na te sa lo ta on ndri zu nga tam ba na te so pas se ni ten di chi po ta ta nji to ya ge ndri go sam lo chi re te nga so to pa te sam lo ta ndri mu tsem ni sam lo ta te so sam lo ta de koro ta sam lo koro yo atndi chi ore te le senjik la gre te so pas se ni.
So just to give an example of eliminative engagers, is, for example, if I hold the hand in front of me and then I kind of mentally eliminate these 4 fingers and just focus on the thumb, that would be an example of an eliminative engager that eliminates these 4 fingers and focuses on the thumb.
Pasini. Koro te na je chala karina ndi na chala mambo chi na ngi samlo taw di jamba samlo mto deb koron tak samlo taw to atendi yore.
Or another example, I see all sorts of different things in front of me, but this eliminative engage, as it were, makes me focus on just the book, not on everything else, but only on one of these many things. It's very same, with regard to the explanation that I gave in earlier class about the conceptual consciousness.
Tani drumchikulo zea tani ma tomel nje shiga ta chikbari nga son din zu nga lu mushi chik taw di nga tan tong du ma ngim de chipol ta yin sam sam ndu chipol ta ma tam de jamba ta son tong yin gore ti drumchikre pa sho ni wancha pa sho lo zu yo ti tse yong gore. Pa sho ni ba ta nge de chipol ta sam na de son tong du. And then the
collective engager is that which focuses then instead of just one part or one thing on all of them, like on all the thumb and the 4 fingers, and then all for that which focuses then on all the things in front of me.
Sonsa tel drumjikulo ya zegre ngemanga so tomeshi pazi theatre tanaw jinga so hago jinga so na ji gedang ga sawlo le tindi pasi ni chik chak chanje to ya ga sawlo chik ta tindi jamato ni pasho ni number te to ko sama shariyon ga sawlo mandawa ni yo ta ha ko gore
da
tanda senji drunjik zede tindi sawlo mandawa ni yo pa te shede gore
this na dia yamena chik yamena sama
da to ban de china senjikulo ndi china koro kan samlo ta gon ta shak nje to ata drumjikulo ze ata tani jima to kan ka tse yo na tsama lo le sharion tani ge chabar mandawa ni yo pa she de gor so ute.
The main difference is that between eliminative engagers and collective engagers, that one, the eliminative engager is a conceptual consciousness that focuses on one aspect or one object. And then the collective engager is that which is non-conceptual, to which all the aspects or all objects appear.
So what that tani chikla senjikulo ta drunjikulo se ade tani chikri tani cheti loru ni chamba ngata zonjore ta semjong se ade ta nambi jong na ngoni semjong ngap chinga chi se ade ke chembo mombo chirin do cha kontro se andra o toni topi shirab se andra o ta jamning ji se andra o sama chancho ko sem se andra sama shesa de so sem jong na ni ma shi yong gore sonsa konsen choko ya muksi ko teli ke pa lose go sem jong ni linde she ge bandu.
So then the last one of these twofold divisions is about mind and mental factors, and His Holiness has devoted a whole chapter in the Tibetan text, it's the 8th chapter. So he has devoted a whole chapter on that mind and mental factors. And in I do have the e-version of that book. There it is, the chapter starts on page 119. Distinguishing, it's chapter 5 here, distinguishing mind and mental factors.
Last reason.
Yeah.
Last
which Kitchenboro. Because it's such an important topic.
Sonsan concentre loss share tani ta sem dans senjong ze de on di tombong aso sem dans senjong go sem ze atala Mimandra can you raise your tato, poi knowledge and at the Jagger knowledge you and do my yandu, poi knowledge in a same down yet on Namshi is any Mimandra something bari.
Same down
yet on Namshi,
then generally speaking, Tibetan then has these, in Sanskrit likewise, there are these different terms which all refer to one different, say, aspect or so of the mind. But so we have yi in Tibetan, which refers to the mental faculty, namshi, which is translated or can be translated as consciousness, and then sem, the mind, which, but they are also said to be synonymous.
Tanda Tandrigo sem dan yet on Nafshi Samzia teleconsan Chokotiman Deshi Gyondi, Kosem Zena Karako Yore, Yezena Karako, Nafshi Zena Karako, your resity, Semzia, and also Pasha Javi, Shame Bichani, Simla, Resin, Tandrisha Sondu.
So, what is being explained here in the book is that the mind, or sem in Tibetan, is that which where the imprints of our actions are being stored.
아니 바창장제나 가르제워데 나추 존나를 케체모 슈직세고레 나츠 마세치그나를 케니 마샤파르트 레카 몽보 슈치레 게위 레카 몽보 체그레 득비 레카 몽보 체그레 타타초 치온디 틴 제वन 라오타 지마 득파 몽보 체왈레 티니 깡게 몽보 레아타 게오 몽보 체왈라 티니 데키 용와 틴지 요레 웨지티 테 짐제티 요레지니 라오레 틴지 그 제킹 사보 모니 라오타 바차그제니 타니 야오레.
So basically from time with our beginning, we always engage in all sorts of actions, physically, mentally, or verbally, right? And any actions that we're doing or we have done that leaves an imprint, as it were, on the mind, and that is that which eventually leads to happiness or suffering. Meaning that if we have done a positive action in the past, that eventually will ripen into happiness and well-being, and then if you have done something negative, that will eventually lead to suffering.
And so, Chendalina Kini Masha Partu Lekandramandalia Kanga Pasha the same Gungol Madin in Jogre, like Kiwachima killing Goretis on the Kiwachimalian, same Gungol Pasha the same Gazoni, Tinima Kiwachimal Pandogre, Semia. Kiwachimal and Rogres or Nazo Zupokiachimal Chandroyo Marta Zupokuni Leka Leva, Pasha Sama Semgungol, Saponage in the Sha, the Nikiachimal, Kiwachimal, Sapoya, Mimba Najigenio, Gangi Mombo Jatayana, Deki Yomata to Kitu Latini Shiore.
Yeah. And so that which we have brought, so the imprints, mental imprints that are being stored on the mind, they will continue on after this life. Obviously, we have to discard of our body, right? But it's the imprints that are like seeds. They're being stored on the mind stream, and that continues on to the next life or future lives, and then ripens in the form of happiness or suffering.
I think that's Nemaya Chijimba, Semsia, the money Nemata Kiwangaman, and the Nichima Leva, and you enjoy Namjata Yona, Kiwangachi, your melinota Tunimea. Kasi semze azi tanji chinjoya mena kyang apchen jeshia yo mare nenga chembo chikta ta nanchu nenga chembo chikta semgol tu deore semze ni moni kyang amani chamandro de ni tanji go usichen la mate ni dro de ni chiyo na kyang achi yo paten kisar kasi ndri chi mena kyang achi yo mare tande yo mete serupa ta namba so pa cheshu kin samjigre.
Yeah, so that's the greatest debate, when it comes to rebirth. But accepting this, that we bring certain imprints of our actions with us from past life, which continue on to the future life, then that it all makes sense with rebirth. But if we don't accept that, then but anyway, that's the biggest debate between the scientists and the Buddhists.
Also, Tani, yes, same day, Tana Nipa yes, at go yes, Towichani, Yin Lav Jares, Tanyeti Jares, Tililaundo.
So, being translated as mental faculty, that's that which ascertains or realizes an object.
Namshi said that number so Shivichani Tajares, then Nato Shiba Namada, Mandrakan the Shigro, or Tichani Namshi Lares, Tetical Debondo. You'll Nambanda, Mandashivichani, Namshi Lares.
Namshi, translated as consciousness, is that which ascertains different aspects of things, of objects.
Last Tani, same Zediat Tendije, same John Zediate, Yatongazo, same John, the Nazo Nedi Samlo Chitana Kakache Kaboyore. So we have spoken about the mind, and then we come to the mental factors. It's very difficult to think or talk about them as totally different entities. Chatanchi Bawali Yarnduta, Chatanchi Bawagana, Jamso, the Jamso, Love Yarna, Simzat, Jamso Tawchina, Simjonzat, and Nikap, Barlav Taw, Teniji Garni Chishi, and the Teniji Lamna, this called the Amendro.
It's always often explains the mind and mental factors with the help of an example or an analogy. Talking about the ocean and the waves on the ocean, and he says that the mind is can be likened to the ocean, and then the waves on top are like the mental factors.
Sontangazo Katina Kenny Masha Partizana, Nyanka Nyamoyina in Sela Nukoina, Katina, same the Yoyo Pare.
From birth till we die, whether we are awake or we are asleep, we always have the mind. Yeah, it's always there.
Ina ti kawle semjong de kati na dramada kan de yore zina samsam lo cha yore ta control yo mar samsam lo chamse yore ta je ta yo mar tandi dramada chini kap ku semjong de samsam lo legerin samsam lo male wa tandi ki chapan ro chi yore.
But it's different with regard to the mental factors. So sometimes we may have, attachment, but no anger. And then we have anger, or, all these different mental factors can come up, but it's not necessarily the case that they're always present.
Samsam lo deki yore, samsam lo dingar yore ta. Ti kap tsama le sem yo pare ta sem jong de mandra ta ki gamso te yo pa imbala la mandra le ana je sem jong dan sem ni teni do chi kwa jab chiresha.
Or then, sometimes we feel happy, sometimes we are upset. But the mind there, it's always there. But it's like the ocean and the waves. So the ocean is always there, but the waves change.
Yana yo sem da sem jong ni ka ge yer ta ta soli khabar yo rezina te sawa ni ni khabar yo ma res te khabar me son sa ko ni len rabo nga sere te len son da nga la re.
But so mind and mental factors, they have always the same object, and it's said that there are 5 similarities, or the 5 ways in which they're similar.
Tanda pena nga so ni mukishi batal sem da sem jong ni ka ja yo la ore.
Meek.
Ngende ndendo chigla tavis lo chikevitsena shibatal sem da sem jong ni cha yore.
When I look at this glass, for example, then both there is the mind and the mental factors arising.
Sonza tis tavitsela sem de yon glass tal mugde yore la sem jong de glass tal mugde la.
Okay. So in other words, the mind ascertains or sees the glass, perceives the glass, but there's also with the mind there are mental factors.
Sonza konya mu pa chikbare la.
So in that sense, both mind and mental factors have the same object.
Ani ko chikle glass sharde wala chikle glass sharde koni namba sharde ati chikbare la or.
Number.
Tasa the glass yimbala kol sem sharde ati glass sharde ora.
They also have talking literally about the outer object. So that's the same for both the mind and the mental factors. But then also what appears is the aspect of that glass. That's also same for the mind and the mental factors.
Ani ngetil thoya mushi te kewi jiken yang chikba cha de ore manga sem jong le jiken loka chi ta sem le jiken loka tndi yang che yo mar la ore. Jiken chi yin son sa ten chikba ze.
So they also have the same basis, referring to the same cause and condition.
Tani zen chomba ze ya chi ore zen chomba ze ya te nge thongwi mushi te kewi sena ti nyam de chorwan ra chikle na chowa dewa chikle gre dingar chikle ta ya kon jindu samna chowa dewa chikle gra dikcha jindu san chowa ma ki ba chikle gra chowa chik ta sem chik kor chik ma to mombo yung ma res sem chik ta chowa chik zin chomba ze gre
So together with each mind there's one feeling. For example, if I see or perceive something as ugly or repulsive, then there is a negative feeling arising. Or if I see something as beautiful, appealing, then a feeling of happiness arises. And there's always one particular feeling going together with a particular perception that refers to that they have the same substance, it's called.
And the chiching matomale zeat so go a child des calendar which you repena, sem chicken corle, Torah zeata chickmonger legumaris or mato, Jamba sem John Dramanda yores in a yore shirabio chore, yon Karizekona pen and the shizi and the chase and the shizi and the Jerpazia, Sembazia, Sem Jombo, Jambato Yoshoreta, Sorala, so a chimunga, so the Dinicalia yoma, Tindrichica or it quates Chacapon Nema. That's
a bit difficult, but so when we say that there is a particular mind that goes together with one particular feeling, that doesn't mean that there are no other mental factors that can arise together. There can be wisdom, there can be discernment, there can be other factors.
Ani tamam sombar nga nga chik de kar ze tin somba ze sem de ngel kin sem jong de jiku kia ta sem jong de jiku kia sem de ngel kia tin yo ma ni ka tinyam de ki yong re ze
and also it is the case that they have the same time, so both mind and mental factors arise together at the same time.
ta sem jong de shi jiao de na chu jong chang ma na le dan dan zong de nga go nin de dan da shi nga go nin de shi jiao yong du te ko cha ka po shi andu ta seni koron le te ja ko rang kor Rancourt tambi sem dans somber tamba sem jong senya da Rancourt tambi sem dans somber sem jong dans somber tamba sem ji senya zeni senya korota ga on din sonde nga ta sia chi mara na sem jong de she ka bon ra wo ching re sha
yeah
ha jo senya lo ma to nan rin senya ngungo le te nga go ni she yong nu la
Seni
senya koron le te nga te jar ja yo national Jean Mombo na te jar ndo ay jar
Anyway, yeah, so there are particular definitions of what the mind, how the mind is being defined and the mental factors are being defined. But what it all revolves around, in it comes back in the text everywhere, that mind and mental factors have these so-called 5 similarities.
Nani, ta, not so, Jupchandra Chikiani, Pena Sem Jong Nachi, or Tel Saulotani Chikjar, Tandani, Tandani, Jean Chio, Tejachini, Shijana Yasaru, Pena. Ngazo bonzo mushi go mangni de glass in the taponzo mushi go bombala tavitse su sem chik chongres
Su sem
chik ran chongres
So when my eyes are perceiving this glass, for example, there's one main mind that arises.
Tin korte sem jong ngats ni parti yogores.
But together with that main mind, there have to be 5 omnipresent factors that are always there. And they all have these 5 similarities. So one of them is a feeling.
Feeling the honor. Dekechiyana dinarchinde de dunika kaya ma chona nga so achi yoje hako marta parmachi tende chongo yores.
Yeah, so there can be positive feelings, negative feelings, and neutral feelings.
Ni pan deshi zeate chongo ren deshi zeate karbochire marbochire rimbochire tunduchire tindi chapan zeate yon semjo ni pan deshi zeachi ore tile kares.
And then the second of these omnipresent factors is discrimination that distinguishes an object.
Ko carborendu marborendu katoko chabarchiata rimborendu tundurendu tendriga chabarchia yana mirendu tendrorendu chalachirendu tendri chabarchiata ndashizeni o tendriga semjochi legres.
Yeah, so discrimination is that which distinguishes particular colors of a thing, for example, or whether we see an animal or person or a thing, and so forth.
Sonzangin den toyat semjong digil sembaziachi ni samlo tisholo pakak korjaya gachi karlare tenagent semjong sembaziachi lord the legres.
And then we have the next of these omnipresent factors, mental factors, is intention. That's likened to the drive of a car.
Tani karechil kan tani temena tan semba mena sevia manil semba yela chebare ore yela chebaziata tako yerta soso gsa chetak palanjingi cherzeti chetak pandriga muksega kare glass industry kor telpa sem tembe chenyin rawotala yela chebaze labde gore ketan mombochi yore tanga del tembe cheyora tele muksega ta chechun donyin rawotala yela chebaze gore chetak palanjingi cheze yer mombochi ginani yer chetak palanjingi kete yela chepagle kareze gore.
And then we have the next of these omnipresent mental factors is mental engagement. That out of, among many different things, particularly engages in one particular thing or object.
Ani repa ziachi o repa te yetan wambo tan yersam de sunduchi yagi nyam de sunduchi yagi chachi changin repa rela gore.
Yi wangpo ni.
Yi wang nafshi samze gore. Yetan wambo tan nafshi sam de tilpa duchiga so naso mombo chim duchiga ndchiora duchiga chachi chiatel repare la ore.
Yi Wang.
Na, Yong Nafshi Dipa.
And then we have contact, which kind of brings together the mind, the sense faculty, and the object. Kasa yi, yeah,
Yet
yi.
on one boat and Nafshi some Senduni till
Not
that.
yul. Yi Wang yul.
Nafshi.
Yeah, so the mind, the sense faculty, and the particular object. That's what contact does, bringing these three together.
That in the chain on the Jipcha shooting the Shigaon Matom. Japan the China share the chick down the Ote, the Yondu Samba, Saulo chicken Chimato, Chu Saulo chick down, Koyer Chimato, Saulo Tango Marta, Jipcha Saulo Donna, the Corla, and the same Jongas as a Legio Patent Jela. Naso Saulo Shira Matana, then Zambi Shipachi do something mato, then Mombochi Yopahako Mara. In a Jipcha Saulo Donna, Natamba Nipertundula. Natamba Yoa the Carresina. Teso Takishia Najan, Stigmanzana, then Tonto Maris. Catamanzomna, yet and Tonto Maris.
Yeah, so I mean, normally we don't think about all these details, but actually it is the case that together with the main mind, these 5 mental factors are always there. They have to be all together before we, so that we can perceive a particular thing or person or whatever. And if one of them, these factors, mental factors, are missing, then we cannot perceive an object.
Sonsa, then the Chini, same job to the Latate, same job and I've shared the same job control as it, you all Mari and Rishi Gawinda, same job, same job with Cabaret, Kuni Tachi Shia, number not sombat. Same rarely on Tinkor rarely Nicoso parts and Jabonga Chandruach, same Jongo Cabar, the Tingoni Shindu. They may not cover it, and the Rang Quarter Chong, same Don Somber Dambaran, Quarter Chong, same John on Somber Dambalandoa. What they love the Coso, same joy in mind, the Conin Sondan chase at a chick the soon or chicken corner or chenny. Any Conin Sondan Nabangam Sotia, and the Conin same down St. John's in Jato Grace.
Jigsaw
Somba ngat tia yo atendi chiwala tini same down same Jones in Caberche de Ores. La Kirasari.
So anyway, yeah, so we have the main mind that and then is surrounded, as it were, or accompanied by these mental factors. And as mentioned before, they all have to have these 5 similarities.
Ani jamba chikari oreziti ta so navya tiche semke zeni chanchu sem zeni ta nachu na sawa chembo chi shagayo otit tandan sem ze atingoni jagore.
And then we often hear about bodhicitta, the spirit of enlightenment in Buddhism, that revolves around the main mind that we have been talking about.
Semcha tamcha kchet semcha tamcha dekil dingar litarni dealango pichet so sanji komboton ton de niergo sambi su semchi letije sevke labde or.
So so the Mahayana, the bodhicitta, the Mahayana aspiration is that which if one aspires to achieve Buddhahood, in order to free all sentient beings from suffering.
Ani tani doji sem ziyade tani doji jani ta sem jong da gerni tani manjo da sem ziyade nga so seri chi yong ayona. Ani sem jong ziyade la changa mombo chi shere nambi jong lopo tanda chengo ngomba kundi nala. Ngomba kundi nala sem jong ap chenga chik ziyachi ta ngomba nzok nala sem jong chi jechik ziyachi sheore ta te jachi ni juayin sem jong nala manjo gye. Ngomba nzot. Ngomba kundi ta ngomba nzot.
So there in the Abhidharma literature, there is mention of 51 mental factors.
Ngapcha ngachik the country doji shegore ziti takishia control ngazi achiore. Ti gonle yirni pa ngazi ni yonga sechiore. Ti gonle geva chachik zini gevi korle chachik tamba shiore. Tani gach stavi nyomomba trikze nyomomba trikze seo. Nyevi nyomomba nyesha zeachi seayore. Ti gonle jengir juzeachi seayore. Te yadona ngapcha ngachik chandore.
Yeah. So how these 51 mental factors are divided is that we have, these 6 categories. We have 5 omnipresent factors, and then 5 determining factors, 11 virtuous factors, 6 root afflictions, then 20 secondary afflictions, and 4 changeable factors. These all make 51 in total.
Olas. Tani ti ta tombo control ngaziatri control ngaziat takisha tsorwa deshi semba yela chepa reopati ngatri.
So what these omnipresent mental factors are concerned, there are 5. We have the feeling, discrimination, intention, mental engagement, and contact.
That's all Carla's control of Goya Carriziti. Same chick yo chinchel think or ngati yo pandawachi race, Katrasta meach. Same chickless on a think or tanda control ngate, Katina lele paritu, Kosola controls it, Kundroasi. Same when you call the Droasi.
And why are they called omnipresent mental factors? Because they're always, to get accompanying the main mind.
And he's not so sound down the Katina that's looking. Kadina control at the yoga samar pena so and ochin and some so I check on me at the young doa sam the tika so a me mares so a taniums there tell how on the deva my dinner my parman rochi on the not so hako yo marimu tika so at your relawar.
We may wonder, is that really the case? Is it really so that always we always have feeling in all these 5 omnipresent mental factors? Because sometimes we might not have, strong positive or a strong negative feeling, but nevertheless, it's the case that feeling is there. It's then rather a neutral feeling.
Tatombo kato tsoatri, tsoat some door machirk ba ranto kinyas nyovi number changi Sam Jones in insane tinjandu, Tonda carresiti, Matsu Tsorazia de Yana, Kangen Roach, Simba in the Lina, Kangen Yoach, Yana Diki Yoach. Yana Tenjikaya mine, the Parman Richini did the Ateo Koro Shipa Koro Nipalatini Richichoala, Soras in Tanyeti Gargores.
So feeling is that which, or when we either experience well-being, happiness, or we have or probably we go through difficulty, suffering, or we can also have neutral feelings.
Tatela ayan wrote some chictangachi jakandu ta some the tachi devata dinkata tanyo samdare tanga tjondi lutan lisortan semso ni cheni likitsoa de duni semgitsoa de duni tikal tanyom de neni nga jakandu.
So we can either say there are neutral feelings, positive, negative feelings, or we can also speak of there is physical well-being and physical suffering, mental well-being and mental suffering, and neutral feelings. So which makes it 5.
Tande so de digzetia tanga so hakore lug kangechi yore tel lusorlare lug dekechi yore tel yan lusorlare ligtiara ani lug goni chimam bala samlo tande de dig the kar chagde ore zitinga so korwa non mi tsama nyocha nonsa so ngoni tende chade ore Kepoyon vice the kangi mombochi ya dingan gaw vice the kangi mombochi ya ni de dignika ti chetel matsama ti chetel jude ore mazya yomar socha sama so denji sama ta de vice te jude ore dingan gaw vice te jude ore
Something sama di gubero. All sentient beings are same in that regard. We all, we do everything for that, physical and mental well-being. We want to avoid all the rest, all the negative feelings.
So that lisorta semso ni cheni ngaso lisorta kandi chongore lisorta pena kala zaki marani chogoto andro tayana nasana ne zupol kanginche andro tayana chika shuani na andro tayana tendigi cheni chololo zupo kangi mombo chi legore tati Tendel Natsu Nanmangi Pombo at the Lance and is on the Shita Kaya Tablam Chichio Mari, Korokanjina Leungore, Kalazaitamara Nakatina Chokototo Aretel Tablam Chichio Mari.
It is just the nature of the body. Because we have a body, we if you don't eat, we feel hungry. There's nothing to do about that. Or if we face any physical sickness, then then it's negative feeling of not being well. Kaisa Shemba.
Mari kangi mombo chilea ta shira chulteni chusena kabor chunzi cheni ta so chua ta kapon ro shu res liu dingar ta so.
Yeah, so
Choko tona chucheni choko jari tangwa kabore.
but it's difficult to really overcome these, physical problems. When we're hungry, we are hungry. If we're sick, we are sick.
Sonza te so chilo ko cheke langi partengore liga kange se wala choko tona kala ngi partitsi gore mang kala ma sina choko. Tamasha nyawle bantombo to so lion kala chi tis ba chi zani choko ja chillen ze ya chindu ndu te musundu la ndu ngana nyawle che ma nyawle yo me mat.
I mean, for us, ordinary beings, we just have to eat when we're hungry, right, and so forth. But there might be, highly realized practitioners. They, even if they're hungry, it might satisfy their hunger by just eating very little, for example.
Ngama aso paila auchi de traba mare palach poka nani shu nani ni pat kala chuni zamu to atni chandro te jamba chi choro te nyamlen chulen zegre te chulen chulen nyamlen che shoze ko nyamlen che tan la wazar ke dawa kashi le te nyamlen chi ni parshi kon drop son la ni rubu chuchu reza jana ni kala za ko mundu se te nyamlen che andu la so
there was a story about someone in an old lame man in Nepal.
Koro poka nani koro nyamlen che te pe amaze jima ko koro uti jabu zo ate so poka ne pajembal chena ya po pengdula.
So he had some intestinal problems. He couldn't eat, but then kaisa mishemba konki.
Kalama chigo kol koro chile gom shon nyamlen che shon la wasara teni ko.
Ribo sagi nyamlen chi bari.
Tombo ta nyamlen che nyamlen juvna teni juvle zanan jikor. Munga tombo ta jigmara.
But Lama told him to engage in a certain practice. And then, but jela nyamlen sabi jiso nulen sa ribo jakso. And then
teni ribo chizana kuro ribo zoni ta zana teni jikor kalaza.
And then so apparently he was apparently successful in his practice. And then he got this chulen pill. It's a kind of Tibetan pill. And then eventually he didn't need to eat anymore. But
teni daw yore manga tama che sa chlo li kange che ondi te kange cha choko tona kala zandro zupona na menzandro to so ke chembore chita chugo teni chi chabar che yo ma chu nyamle chini te ka pon ro re cheni to so ka po shure na ta ka ya to choko ma to a che ta so te ka bore
but I mean, for ordinary beings, even if you're practicing, obviously, it's very hard to overcome, the suffering of hunger without eating and so forth.
Tanda semgi chorwa zaya chi yora, semgi kange to nyamlin pachi na pe tsama zoya go tablam yacha gya yore samundu.
But I think, as a practitioner, anything related to mental suffering, we can work on and totally eliminate and, get rid of through our practice.
Karazena sem kange zaya ta samlo tantong mandri ni yongu yore ma to jamba chilo ko cherke landre ate zio chito su samlo tantong ma so go samlo tantang ya po chi dekye ku cho kyang le samlo tang kan di na ke pon ro samlo tang de ni chi na sem ranging ke po chan ro ate ya cha yare sha the.
Because any mental problems we are having, mental suffering, that depends not on outer things, right? But it's the way we think. And that's what we can 100% work on and remove.
Tan namji samlo tani mambo chi ka so chama dewan do pa tan dinga mando pa chik ba imba te samlo tani nyamle che ore te so pen to chembo yo sare karasi tinga so mi jamba no pa che ma ko ya nyama rere le kali jab de at koro de chi che teres aro nyama rere le kali jab de at aro de chi che teres aro chama de chi che te kan ja wa sa nga so chama chi de che ma to na digbo ma che ga ta shi chi nga so ba se che go samne so go samlo ya sho ni ka ti na samlo ta to na nyama rere semba yari kiri yo ai sare.
And if you also keep in mind that we are all same and that we all want happiness and we don't want to suffer, right? And and then if you think along those lines and remind ourselves on a daily basis, then that will help us to achieve more and more mental well-being and happiness.
Liki kange chik yo na pe na zikpo da neban rawo chik da choko to de na ya te zirki non zini nga so te shi te kange mayin ban rawo chik kange leta le de yo re ta te kata toyo ma re ta semba shi kya son sa da pa sho ni kange rawo me ya pe na nga so semba shi ki wi ka so zikpo le chik kange rizin te na ka na sha mundo o te yo ya te tap shi yo re
and then eventually when we have done some training and have worked with our minds, then even if we face physical hardships, we fall sick or whatever, then it will not affect us anymore that much.
Also so now gendele donda chechi chonchon karel tina semba kepoche gwa de keche more ta saba kepoche gwa de sama hakore ta cheto yo mar che manto sonza samlo ya potanda ato semba makina pendo karandu mi jambal tsuba zana ngasul pendo ndue Mijambala no bachina pendon do ete saulo pendo che kamere pendo me maz digan le soso maki pachegri deli
talk my young
ngaso semba maki pachena ngaso pendo yoreve ngaso semba ke pochi goya hakore ta cheto yo marwa tam che matoni semba maki pazona ngaso pendon do ezena yo mares.
Yeah, so we can investigate and ask ourselves whether it's of any use if we basically feel make ourselves miserable.
So semba maki palatini mila kacha na poshia samlo na potaya tindichena young ngal pento kondu pasol pento second pento mare.
Yeah, if we feel miserable and then if we act it out by talking like whatever verbally abusing others or for example, does that really benefit them or does it benefit us?
Sonzangaro to samba makibi jumsen le samlo ya potanda samlo samba makiwa de kani jumsen chi samlo da ta chiku soso le kachamaya na mandro asya yana chiku soso panjur to solo podi taya tandi chamwala tanda yana jamba giken le tininga so semba makiba chakayore so giken le samlo tombo ya potan.
And we can investigate and think properly about what caused our mental uneasiness or mental suffering.
Pechajana chigungal tina pola yana ni panjur mula sopa choya chapaya la sopa and amanda kangichin chayora.
We can make so many reasons, why we feel miserable. Like someone else said something negative to us, unkind to us, or we are having financial problems and whatnot.
So that nesser the chance harti tele chutam du tamandu tasho.
And then we can check, is there anything we can do about it? But once, we have, acted out something, or once, task is finished, then we can't redo it. I mean, we can't turn back the time. It's done. Well, maybe we have made a mistake or so, but we can then say, okay, now I've done the mistake. I can't turn back the time, but in future I can try to be careful not to make that same mistake.
Otandi nesa level de tate keche mare samni soso samlo te tansup sona kangi kyacha ombochi ma chori doja kare pachi kyacha gupchi chori doja kare ta keche mare kewa mare samsam go samlo te tantum na.
But in any case, if you don't feel well, about what is the case, then we can think, well, it doesn't really matter so much. And I mean, have that more relaxed, spacious attitude will, 100% benefit us.
Penangati mayondi mi jamba chingni pesha de kama jani rojana nge ke yo mare samni saulo te tanjana ngal tu pesha kama shoni kangi chimbo chintri mare.
For example, if I come here and on the way someone steals my purse, steals my money, if I think, well, it's not a big deal, then, but nevertheless, it will benefit me, my mental peace.
Tesa mato ninge pesha te la so samni sense chi tsupa za tendi chena pesha ne tso yon ayo mare pesha zo maybe quand le soso le kanga lomba kanzo semba makipa zo soso natsa soso makipa ta gasha mombo chi yang pandro na mato pendo chi kan ma chonre.
But if I become very angry and keep on thinking about how about this loss, but it doesn't make the money return. It doesn't benefit me in any way.
Sonza tendigo so katina kangin chebi kalu salo tani tangin til sense che dena pendo che o mare ni ngaro semba che poche ni dena kepsa ngaro te chegre samni te yani yon de salo tantum na te na chu chenye che goni chena che goya ngoni te re la kepsa ya che sho te tere
Kasi tu topa yang ke.
na chu chenye che ngoni shena ta kangi katina kanin chena zubo kangi ta kinga Soshia Naji Chikaya, Samlotani Kaya Chioma, the same Gukangi, Samlotani Kaya Sonsa, take cut up Chetona, then not Junyam Pachiku Kochobari.
But anyway, particularly as a Buddhist practitioner, as mentioned before, I mean, we can't oftentimes do anything about physical, issues, but we can definitely work on our mind, and that's, what we are encouraged to do as Buddhist practitioners.
Last, but then did you get Sochija Kama Ngajindu, Chavalenjik, there's Jena?
We have about 5 minutes left, so we can have some questions, if you like. Do you have any questions?
Same John the calendar, which you are at it.
Mind and metric practice is probably a little bit difficult.
Just the beyond your young, that's all lot of consent. Can you just shoot the shigam to the same John to your poaching, same John and now your position and Pendo Chimboyor.
But yeah, I mean, I can only encourage you to read the book by His Holiness. He, wrote extensively and detailed about all these things, and it's really beneficial to know about these, about the mind and the mental factors.
Yes, it's really hard to understand for me. It's not so easy. I needed to reread so many times because it's difficult for me to understand mental factors 51, but
Yeah.
I will try to study. Thank you.
So the Tiwamin do in the Jangyada Tapsi Giore, Kodo, Yanki Logi, Sam Dang Senjungachi.
Oh, last time at the Kali calendar on the Tuchi, just a Shigarochi.
Yeah, please, thank you too, and please make effort, and we go slowly, we go through them.
That's on the Dajin Soya, the Tamal Pentochi, Donda me patching Macha, and that's how much you get.
Yeah, we all work hard to make the class beneficial for us all.
Tatani Tramin Kama Mushindu.
It's difficult to meet. Koyang di Kalika Walusi.
Chipero, Tashi Garochi, Kalitesi or
Please, try your best, work hard.
Tani ta Sora, same job Sora Zedia Tangasuteri, Sora Zeatangas Chetoni, Nabjichena, Rantrish, Lurinoli, Rantrish, Chishu injury, Kangin Cheata. Jopochon Tangasun, Taba Hako de Gura, Sonza same John and Gitsoa Zedia, the Shigi, same John Abjingasing on the Soala theory. That's a rantro, little shorter than the injury.
I think the first one out of these 51 mental factors is the mental factor of feeling, and that's what we probably the most easiest can relate to, because we always have either one of these feelings.
Atani tema totsora korla jamba Geshe Machina Yasaro, Tenendich Yesarita, Ligutsorata, Yikitsorani, Cheni, Ligutsorata, Chicha Kilatini Sercoata, Semgutsoaziata, Samlo Tantangoni, Javandro Yopatet, Hakoni, Samlo Taikinajan, Javatare. Ligutsoata, Chalol and Javachimpo, Chalol Martina, Javacabore Mato. Go. Not you chain a Dutch on Baziati Componto on Titani, Lingual Kangimea Chakares, Shan, Lingual Kangiziat Lilawaseto Marese, not you chain a theory.
What physical suffering is concerned, of physical feelings can be suffering or well-being. This very much relates to outer circumstances and objects and whatnot. But the mental well-being or suffering, for that matter, mainly relates to the way we think. And then, what great practitioners or high-level bodhisattvas are concerned, they're said to have the Jiangchu said the Satombo. So foe destroyers are said to not have physical suffering anymore.
Dachumba Zeata Yon Tang Dachumba Chataya Ramari. So, no more summer same you could Samlo tani semji kunyomo sama panson di dachon bazet komotom rokor.
So someone who's a foe destroyer is said to have abandoned all the afflictions.
Sonza teni zonte semga kange yo marta lila tanda ngaso li noj de la de ona li kange de yores.
But so therefore they don't have mental suffering, but they as they have like a coarse body left, like the one we have, then
Teni te dachon bat machine yanjo listi le on di teni zupon sama ngaso zupon da manja zame kleze ya chitoba yores ore teni lipole ya kange me ya changa.
So, and when a a foe destroyer is like that, with a still, who has still that ordinary body that we have, they will have, or they may have still some physical, suffering. But once they pass away and then are reborn, then they don't have a coarse body, ordinary body, as we do anymore. Zubu kan du?
Zupo jebo lansona teni kange me ya changa res.
Zubu ngatsu nang shimar.
Zame zet.
Yeah, their body is said to be a non-contaminated, uncontaminated body, which is not unlike ours, and they then don't have any physical suffering anymore. And that's the way it's explained in the text, in the Buddhist text, but we don't have any experience of our own. Can Geshe talk about why sense consciousness is mistaken cognition? Wangshi karechene to shiri.
Wangshi zede at Trishi Chandra at Taki, Semzambi Lindo Chichena, Semzambi Tomo Maimbi Tawat Cancer Shivering in the Dim Rochitati, Nimushin the Wayuri, Dim the Wayura Roa. Inayon, Ungutun Mupuni Sol Dim the Wayo, Marela or Semzamba. Nishipa Lisha, Tesamato, Chigayo Marizin, Semzambi Tenichi, Churoton the Mato Zat Tila. Sonza net toan du samgo yore the tawayo marni shipping ngoli yore trason resin initiative.
So what the sense consciousness is concerned, why it is said to be mistaken, at least from the point of view of the mind-only school, is that they say that the outer appearance of the book, for example, in that case, is mistaken. It's not existing outside as we perceive it to be with our eye consciousness, but in fact it's in the nature of the Simki Rangshi. So the mind only school says that there are no objects existing outside, but they're all in the nature of the mind. In that way, our perception, which thinks that these things are outside, is mistaken.
So nanga pasha sertong dramanda chington degre manga cholon in dramanda chi parche mere labde gore.
They say that we perceive all these different things because of ripening imprints in our mind.
Ote tawat semzambi tawat seurete jana pa namba te solete semzambi tawat hacha caption boreze nutate nguyuni solete chirani hako mero. Jana te semzambi tawat tanse lama tawat semzambi tawarendo.
Apparently this view of the mind only school is widespread in China these days.
Semzamba tansen yo tansen gi jagar le on lob jonchi ti semzambi tawa lob jonchi ni rondo tansen lama te jana ko lo jingo lama ke rachim boshi tansen se de no samba seti
Tansen lama is a famous Chinese lama apparently.
Koso semzamba omi lilendre gore Koro Roma woni the semzambi tawa the Roma woni the race Roma zedeti kiku terwa yakshon rawo the semzambari mato jamba the supposed shu kelengo ma semzamba koron jajachina koro Roma ba yin la yongore semzamba ya Roma ba yin la yongore yakshu the Roma ba zina su yakshon rawo the kiku tata.
Like conventionally we always hear the Umapada, the Madhyamika view is the best, but then Geshe also says that those who hold the Chittamata, the mind only school view, but they nevertheless would say from themselves, "Oh, we are we are holding the highest view, the Madhyamika view." So there's.
Last, tini jange tita chalong la yang tuna shamba yomendo.
I don't know.
Last.
Yeah. Then we leave it today.
Tuchi. Not to Josh and Lasso. Tuchi. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Josh.
Thank you.